technology or technical aspect of it is that yes, American and in fact for that part, most of the Western electronic machines, voting machines are susceptible to hacking, and that is, as we've talked about this before, and that is because they are connected to internet. So the thing is, in the American system, because it is connected to internet all the time as the voting is going on, a hacker can get into that system. The hacker can eavesdrop, the hacker can on the transit, the data can be manipulated, the data may be changed as it is being stored and things like that. And unfortunately, as the years have gone by, Election Commission's trustworthiness has gone into dumps. Today, there's no way any election commission can be trusted. So that's very unfortunate. For democracy, trust is the paramount. Its foundation is trust and transparency, and we lack both. But assuming that Election Commission has made a true claim that it cannot be connected, then the chances of hacking do not exist at all. But then chances of manipulation, yes. Why? Because again, I've said this again and again for years now. In this case, in my view, all the political parties are equally responsible. It is not the responsibility of the ruling party alone. It is the responsibility of the opposition also not to let this go, because they are responsible for democracy as much as the ruling party is. First is Americans, whatever I know of them is, an average American is also aware of the importance of freedom. They understand what is freedom. They don't mistake freedom for anarchy. We unfortunately mistake freedom for anarchy. Freedom has to be exercised within a framework of rules. But it is same for everybody. They understand what is equality. We don't understand what is equality.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has claimed that electronic voting systems are vulnerable to hacking and called for a nationwide switch to paper ballots. She made the remarks during a cabinet meeting which was attended by President Donald Trump, where she presented evidence of voting machine security flaws. The development came a day after Trump signed executive orders directing the Department of Justice to investigate former cybersecurity chief Chris Krebs for his actions during the 2020 elections. Now, what exactly Tulsi Gabbard said, and I'm going to quote, "We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections." So this is what Tulsi Gabbard had said, and now her statement is widely being shared on the social media, and it has sparked a fresh debate over election security in the United States. So this was United States, but a lot of people have already started talking in India that if this is what Tulsi Gabbard had to say in context with the American elections, what about India, where there is an ongoing battle about the voter list, about the sanctity of elections, over EVMs, about the charged batteries, about epic card numbers. So this raises again the similar questions that which way is the electoral democracy going ahead in India if Tulsi Gabbard has raised such an important question on the integrity of American elections. Joining me now is Madhav Deshpande, who's a technical expert, someone who's been associated as a consultant with the Obama administration. Thank you so much, Arvind, for joining. It's a real pleasure to have you on the program. And the moment I read the story today, and I thought of you, that you should be the one who should be interviewed today. And so, beginning with what Tulsi Gabbard has said, and of course, it has raised a fresh debate on the integrity of elections, about EVMs, about the return of ballot papers. How crucial is this for America? I'll start with America and then come on to the questions which are still pending in India. So, in context with the American politics, how important is this statement by Tulsi Gabbard, where she's collected fresh evidence?
So thank you for inviting me, and it's nice to know that you thought of me to talk to. Of course, not being a political commentator, I will not go into the politics of the comment. But the technology or technical aspect of it is that, yes, American, and in fact, for that part, most of the Western electronic machines, voting machines, are susceptible to hacking. And that is, as we've talked about this before, and that is because they are connected to internet. And the way they work is they in a way, we have to understand a lot of things about the US elections. We'll not go into all the details, but the voter has a choice either to vote by ballot or paper or vote by electronic machine. When he does vote by electronic machine, it is a simulation of the paper, where the tick mark is comes when you tap and things like that, and then that paper is also later on scanned, so their counting is done by scanning, and the electronic vote registration happens online directly on the internet, and that is what makes it very susceptible. Because then, see, one of the fundamental things that one has to remember is, the more advanced, so-called advanced technology or more connected technologies you tend to use, the more susceptible they become, because then you are opening up multiple points for the hackers to make entry. If it's a closed system, then the hackers find it very difficult to get in. It's like, if you build a house and you have only one strong door, then to get in, somebody will have to break that door. You can fortify that. But if you have 50 doors, then it's that much more difficult to fortify all the 50 doors. So it's kind of a simile that I'm trying to give you. So the thing is, in the American system, because it is connected to internet all the time as the voting is going on, a hacker can get into that system. The hacker can eavesdrop, the hacker can, on the transit, the data can be manipulated, the data may be changed as it is being stored, and things like that. However, there are ways in which this can be countered. It's not that this is the end. But then, politically, this statement is extremely convenient for Mr. Trump. Again, not being a political commentator, I wouldn't go any further. But it is very it's very convenient for him, and so he wants to open a kind of investigation into 2020, because then it might give legitimacy to his claim that the election was stolen. For all we know, he might come out as something that was said correctly, or it may not be. We don't know that. But as far as the machines are concerned, yes, because they are connected, they can be hacked.
No, but you said that while the voting is in process in America, the machines are connected to the internet, and which is why the possibility is higher of the hackers getting into the system. But this is very unlike what happens in India, because I suppose that the EVMs, or the electronic voting machines, aren't connected to the internet.
Correct. Absolutely right. In India, and that has been, and again, see, unfortunately, in India, we have no transparency. I do not know why. I can't answer that for you. We've consistently been for a few years now, we've been raising this question, demanding transparency. We're saying that, okay, show us the machines. In your presence, let technical experts examine those machines. You can open those. Let the technical experts not open those, but you can open those, and let us jointly conduct tests that will establish whether this machine can actually get connected or not. today we are trusting the claim that is made by the election commission. And unfortunately, as the years have gone by, election commission's trustworthiness has gone into dumps. Today, there's no way in any election commission can be trusted. So that's very unfortunate. For democracy, trust is the paramount. Its foundation is trust and transparency, and we lack both. But assuming that election commission has made a true claim that it cannot be connected, then the chances of hacking do not exist at all. But then chances of manipulation, yes. Why? Because again, I've said this again and again for years now. See, you can always write a program that responds to data. What is AI? We are talking of AI today. Everybody talks of AI, everybody talks of chat GPT and things like that. How does artificial intelligence behave differently than standard programs? See, if you look at intelligence, forget about the artificial part. If you look at intelligence itself, intelligence is when somebody can respond to different data inputs that he or she receives. So in a different context, the person is able to act differently as it is required. That's when we call the person intelligent. Artificial intelligence responds to data differently. We're talking of AI every day. So we know that programs can be written that can or that will respond differently to different data inputs. Now, this in Indian context, the data input, most crucial data input goes through the SLU. That is what makes the EVM absolutely vulnerable. Because SLU, see, if you take out the SLU, then the rest of the EVM is entirely agnostic of its geolocation, where it is, whether it is sitting in Pune or Trivandrum or Haryana or Amritsar, or it makes any difference to the EVM. The moment you get SLU in, the symbol loading unit, because symbol loading unit has the data of every candidate, it knows the position of each candidate. I mean, the data has the position of each candidate, and it might contain extra data also, which we don't know. And that this data is downloaded from the web server, which is controlled from one room. And that SLU is then connected to the VVPAT to upload that data. Now, VVPAT is again, we go by what the election commission says, that it is a microcontroller, but it has a program and it reads that data. And it has to read that data because it has to print that slip. Without reading that data, it won't be able to print that slip. Now, when it reads that data, if there is additional data, which makes the program behave differently on only one particular day, and that too only after a certain time, even that is possible. This is one vulnerability. The second vulnerability in Indian EVMs is Election Commission says that it stores 2 copies of the vote in the control unit. Now, on the face of it, this is a very good strategy because it's a backup. I'm not so sure whether the backup should be in the same machine or not. It should not be. Disaster recovery technologies actually advise not to have the backup in the same. But let's leave that aside. If we have 2 copies, and I have filed an RTI and haven't gotten a response as usual, when do they make the second copy? And how do they ensure that 2 copies are identical? Now, see, if the VVPAT is playing games because of the data that is gotten from SLU, then it is going to print slip for, let's say, apple, and it is going to save banana. Now, the first copy could be that of apple. In the control unit, there are 2 copies. First copy could be apple, second copy could be banana. Now, when it comes to counting and, publishing the results, it will count the second copy which has bananas. When it comes to verification, it could count the first copy, which is apple, which will tally with your VVPAT slips. And there is no way you can make it out. Again, there is no transparency, there is no responsibility, there is no responsiveness, which is different from what happens in the US. In the US, if the president says Supreme Court should investigate, their Supreme Court actually goes and investigates. They will call experts, they will form a committee, they will go to maybe Intel, Microsoft, Google, Apple, it doesn't matter who, get maybe multiple experts, form a committee and give a transparent report. In our case, Supreme Court continues to say we have to trust Election Commission, which is the saddest part and which is the biggest disappointment for the Indian democracy and average Indian citizen.
But now, since significant questions have been raised by Tulsi Gabbard today, and she says that she has enough proof to show that these EVMs can be manipulated to influence the elections. I'm sure they will get to the bottom of this now that they have evidence. But when a country like America starts talking about, and nobody lesser than Tulsi Gabbard, if she says so, what is going to be the impact on this entire narrative around the election integrity on a country like India, where there are a lot of pending questions, where everyday questions are being raised on the integrity of elections, on machines, on the entire electoral process? What is the kind of impact you think is going to have? Because a lot of people have started writing, a lot of people on the social media today have shared what Tulsi Gabbard has actually said about the election integrity.
Now, see, your question is what will be the impact? If you were to say what should be the impact, I could have given you the answer. There are two different answers to these two different questions.
What should be the impact? Yes.
What should the impact should be that Indian government, and by government I don't mean political parties. In this case, in my view, all the political parties are equally responsible. It is not the responsibility of the ruling party alone. It is the responsibility of the opposition also not to let this go, because they are responsible for democracy as much as the ruling party is. So I don't think it's only about a party. I think it is about the responsibility that all political parties think in terms of towards the Indian voter, towards not just the voter, towards the Indian citizen. Even those who don't vote, political parties are responsible for those because they are citizens. A ruling party is supposed to take care of interest of every single citizen. An opposition is supposed to raise issue which is of the most insignificant citizen also. So both are responsible. So what should happen is all the political parties should come together. The Supreme Court should, for once, take responsibility, stand up, show that they have a spine and say that, okay, let us get to the bottom of it. Let us not just go by the claims. And see, the thing is, Election Commission has far too long been saying they have the same people who designed the EVM, they patented the EVM, they supervise the production, and they also certify. Nowhere in the world you will find any organization which has the same people who produce as the same people who certify that it is right. Quality control is separate. We have a very different thinking for whatever reason we have. I have no clue. But then it should all come together.
But Arvind, then which means that there are basic flaws in our system when it comes to tackling issues like these. These are basic flaws, but these flaws don't exist in the American system, I believe.
Yes, they don't, because see, first is Americans. Whatever I know of them is an average American is also aware of the importance of freedom. They understand what is freedom. They don't mistake freedom for anarchy. We unfortunately mistake freedom for anarchy. Freedom has to be exercised within a framework of rules, but it is same for everybody. They understand what is equality. We don't understand what is equality. तू मैं करके equality नहीं होती. Equality is when you believe that yes, I have an equal stake in everything. And when I say I have an equal stake, it means I have equal responsibility also. And responsibility is ownership, taking ownership. So in this case, because the party in power has the ability to change things, they have to take ownership of initiating the change and making sure that the change happens. The party in opposition has to take ownership to see to it that the changes are not stalled, they actually happen. here, this is what all should happen. What will happen? Nothing. The answer to the question, what will happen, in my view, is one word: nothing.
But there are times when it's just not Tulsi Gabbard. Elon Musk has also opposed EVMs, and last year I think it was last year when he said that EVMs can be hacked. And that time also there were serious questions that now if Elon Musk has raised this question, then why not India should consider it seriously. Tulsi Gabbard came to India. She met Prime Minister Modi. She met our External Affairs Minister. And now she's raising an issue which is applicable, of course, to her system in her country. But shouldn't India be taking this seriously and plan to work towards this issue in our country?
Yeah. So I have a different take perspective on this. I don't really necessarily agree with Elon Musk, because for everything there is a solution, and even in this case there is a solution. I don't want to share that right now because I am still working on it for myself. But yes, there is a solution to this, even in the context of the US. It's only that they have to show the will to do it. Technically, it is possible. In Indian context, since it is not connected, if that is the correct assertion or the correct statement that the election commission has made, then notwithstanding that it is not connected, see, our electronic election system, as I call it, has so many, it's fraught with absolute problems. There is first problem is that the election commission is utterly, I'm sorry to say, but has been utterly irresponsible. They have been utterly non-responsive completely, and they have somehow allowed the election to be trivialized. We talked about it last time. See, how can you have duplicate epic cards? Is it so simple? Can I have a duplicate Aadhaar card? If yes, then my question as a common citizen is, why was my tax misused to create these systems at all? Because all this money comes from a taxpayer, and by taxpayer I don't mean income taxpayer. Everybody who buys half a liter of milk, who drinks tea, pays GST. So every Indian who purchases anything is a taxpayer. So every Indian has this right to ask why that money was misused to create systems that are so flaky, that are so weak, that can be so easily manipulated. Why? And then somebody has to answer, somebody has to take responsibility. Right from the president to prime minister to the ministers to the chief ministers to local ministers to MLAs, nobody takes the responsibility. Why?
But since the time Tulsi Gabbard has made this statement, and I'm looking at the social media where people are quoting Rahul Gandhi. Recently, Mallikarjun Kharge was for an AICC session in Gujarat where he made a mention of EVMs and return to ballot papers. So do we need a political narrative, and then only the administration, then only the election commission will listen to the people? There are doubts in the minds of the people. There is no two ways about that. There are questions which exist, but you have an election commission which is so impervious to all these questions. They say if you're raising questions, so har shak ka ilaj to kisi hakim ke paas nahi hai. That's what Mr. Rajiv Kumar, the former CEC, said in a press conference. So what would you really say to an attitude like this? When there are doubts in the minds of the people, there are questions raised on the electoral process, but here you have an election commission, and of course the political parties which don't seem to be awakened at all towards these issues.
See, my view is very simple. If somebody is incapable of solving a problem in a system that he or she has been entrusted to handle, that person has no business to be in that seat. Very simple. So if the ex-CEC has said that every problem that people ask doesn't have an answer, then I think he was in the wrong chair. He shouldn't have been there at all, because he was just incapable of either understanding the problem, or having the will to solve the problem, or having the ability to solve the problem. In any of these cases, he had no business to be in that chair. Now, coming to this, I think what we need to do in India is create a system. I don't personally think that going back to ballot paper is the answer. I have been very consistent in this in this view about mine, because I think we've seen when we were kids, ballot papers were fraught with problems. Ballot boxes were stolen, they were rigged. All that used to happen. There is no reason for me to believe today that it will not happen again. In fact, if in those days pistols were available, now AK-47s would be available. So, I don't see there is any logical reason to believe that ballot boxes will not be stolen. So we have to design and make an electronic election system which will have multiple. So I'll give you the basic clue of that design. The basic clue is that it has to have multiple points of proofs. So let's say if the data flows in 5 stages, at every stage you should be able to go back and check that the data was not altered. And such a system can be designed. It can have multiple components. Once that is designed, then it is only up to implementation. Today, I know, I don't want to give names anyway right now, but I know places where even in Maharashtra's last election, people were applied ink, and people have told me this in person. They were then asked to step out, and somebody else voted for them. Now this, whether you get EVM or you get a ballot box, this is not going to change. For this, the Election Commission has to say that we will make the recordings available, we will make them online available publicly so that everybody can watch. The answer is not to say that recordings will not be made available. That is unfortunately the approach that the Election Commission has taken in India.
True. So my last question before I wind up the interview, Arvind, that Tulsi Gabbard's statement on EVMs, and she's saying that she's found evidence of the fact that EVMs can be hacked. Of course, now this has given a fresh impetus to to the debate around the election integrity in America, and also now there are questions asked in India. Now, how would you really see this towards the end? That because it's been like months and almost more than a year when we've been talking about elections being free and fair. And so how, do you think that Tulsi Gabbard's statement is just an occasion to revive this debate, which many feel that, people had got bored of hearing that, elections have been rigged, there has been scientific rigging of the elections, but now Tulsi Gabbard's statement is seen as a fresh impetus to this entire campaign on electoral democracy in India as well?
See, so if I've understood your question right, I think Tulsi Gabbard has multiple reasons to make that statement in the American context. In the Indian context, most of those statements have already been made. A lot of those proofs have already been given. A lot of those verifications have already been asked. I'll give you an example. After Maharashtra election, I filed an RTI asking the Election Commission how many villages in Maharashtra in the election of 2024 did not have cell phone connectivity. That question was sent to Department of Telecommunication, and I got a response maybe after a month or so. I was stunned that the response had 56-page list of villages in Maharashtra state alone that did not have any connectivity. Now, in such a situation where you don't have connectivity to villages in one state, the list goes on to 56 pages. The answer is clearly you can't go online. Let us forget about Digital India and all that stuff. It's all, if this is the official response to me, then I know that Digital India is a hoax. It doesn't exist. Or it exists only in the urban areas, which is fine. But elections are not held only in urban India. So
Yeah.
wherever elections are held, the recordings have to be made immediately available within, let's say, half an hour, 15 minutes, or whatever, and they have to be uploaded. That is the answer.
Absolutely. And which is why there are a lot of questions, because the things are not functioning in the manner they should be. Thank you so much, Madhav, for joining on HW. Thank you very much. Thank you.